away from where I could sat as possible in the long room. There were 5 of them. They weren't talking, and they weren't eating. Well, they each had a tray of untouched food in front of them. They weren't gawking at me, unlike most of the other students, so it was safe to stare at them without fear of meeting an excessively interested pair of eyes. But it was none of those things that caught and held my attention. They didn't look anything alike. Of the 3 boys, one was big, muscled, like a serious weightlifter, with dark curly hair. Another was taller, leaner, but still muscular and honey blonde. The last was lanky, less bulky, with untidy, bronze-colored hair. He was more boyish than the others, who looked like they could be in college, or even teachers here, rather than students. The girls were opposites. The tall one was Stasakyu. If you guys know how to pronounce that in the comment section below, let me know. I've never heard that word before. She had a beautiful figure, the kind you saw on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. The kind that made every girl around her take a hit on her self-esteem just by being in the same room. Her hair was golden, gently waving, and to the middle of her back. The short girl was pixie-like, thin in the extreme with small features. Her hair was a deep black, cropped short, and pointing in every direction. And yet, they were all exactly alike. Every one of them was chalky pale, the palest of all the students living in the sunless town. Paler than me, the albino. They all had very dark eyes despite the range in their hair tones. They also had dark shadows under those eyes, purplish, bruise-like shadows. As if they were all suffering from a sleepless night, or almost done recovering from a broken nose. Though their noses and all their features, were straight, perfect, angular. But all of this is not why I couldn't look away. I stared because their faces, so similar, so different, strike that reversing, were all devastatingly, inhumanely beautiful. They were faces you'd never expect to see except perhaps in the airbrushed pages of fashion magazines, or painted by an old master as the face of an angel. It was hard to decide who was the most beautiful. Maybe the perfect blonde girl or the bronze-haired boy. They were all looking away from each other, away from other students, away from anything in particular, as I could tell. As I watched, the small girl rose with her tray, unopened soda, unbitten apple, and walked away with a quick, graceful lope that belonged on a runway. I watched, amazed at her lithe, I don't know how to pronounce that word, L-I-T-H-E, lithe dancer step, till she dumped her tray and glided through the back door, faster than I would have thought possible. My eyes darted back to the others, who sat unchanging. "Who are they?" I asked the girl from my Spanish class, whose name I had forgotten. As she looked up to see who I meant, though already knowing, probably from my tone, suddenly he looked at her, the thinner one, the boyish one, the youngest perhaps. He looked at my neighbor for just a fraction of a second. Then, his dark eyes flickered on me. He looked away quickly, more quickly than I could, though in a flush of embarrassment, I dropped my eyes at once. In that brief flash of a glance, his face held nothing of interest. It was as if she had called his name, and he'd look up in an involuntary... I hate when 2 words have in and involuntary, like, ugh. Let me try reading that again. It was as if she had called his name, and he'd looked up in an involuntary response, already having decided not to answer. My neighbor giggled in embarrassment, looking at the table like I did. "That's Edward and Emmett Cullen." I can do my girl voice for her. That's Edward. That's Edward and Emmett Cullen, and Rosalie and Jasper Hale. The one who left was Alice Cullen. They all lived together with Dr. Cullen and his wife. She said this under her breath. I glanced sideways at the beautiful boy. He was looking at his tray now, picking a bagel to pieces with his long, pale fingers. His mouth was moving very quickly, his perfect lips barely opening. The other three still looked away, and yet I felt like he was speaking quietly to them. Strange, unpopular names, I thought. The kinds of names grandparents had. But maybe that was in vogue here. Small towns names? I finally remembered that my neighbor was called Jessica, a perfectly common name. There were 2 girls named Jessica in my history class back home. They are very nice looking. I struggled with the conspicuous understatement. Yes, Jessica agreed with another giggle. They're all together, though. Emmett and Rosalie, and Jasper and Alice, I mean. And they live together. Her voice held all the shock and condemnation of the small town. Was that critically? But, if I was being honest, I had to admit, even in Phoenix, it would cause gossip. Which ones are the Cullens? They don't look related. Oh, they're not. Dr. Cullen is really young, in his 20s or early 30s. They're all adopted. The Hales are brothers and sisters. The Hales are brother and sister twins, the Blondes, and their foster children. They look a little old for foster children. They are now. Jasper and Rosalie are both 18, but they've been with Mrs. Cullen ever since they were 8. She's their aunt or something like that. That's really kind of nice. For them to take care of all those kids like that. And they're so young and everything. I guess so, Jessica admitted reluctantly. And I got the impression that she didn't like the doctor and his wife for some reason. With the glances she was throwing at their adopted children, I had presumed the reason was jealousy. I think Mrs. Cullen can't have any kids, though, she added, as if that lessened their kindness. Throughout all their solemn conversation, my eyes flickered again and again to the table where this strange family sat. They continued to look at the walls and not eat. Have they always lived in Forks? I asked. Surely, I would have noticed them on one of my summers here. No, she said in no voice that implied it should be obvious, even to a new arrival like me. They just moved down here 2 years ago from somewhere in Alaska. Alright, got like 4 more pages left. I felt a surge of pity and relief. Pity, because as beautiful as they were, they're outsiders, clearly not accepted. Relief that I wasn't the only newcomer here, and certainly not the most interesting by any standard. As I examined them, the youngest one of the Cullens looked up and met my gaze, this time with evident curiosity in his expression. And I looked swiftly away. It seemed to me that his glance held some kind of unmet expectation. Which one is the boy with the reddish-brown hair? I asked. I peeked at him. Which one is the boy with the reddish-brown hair? I asked. I peeked at him from the corner of my eye, and he was still staring at me, not gawking at me at the other students had today. He had a slightly frustrated expression. I looked down again. That's Edward. He's gorgeous, of course, but don't waste your time. He doesn't date. Apparently, none of the girls here are good-looking enough for him. She sniffled. A clear case of sour grapes. I wondered when he'd turn her down. I bit my lip to hide my smile. Then I glanced at him again. His face was turned away, but I thought his cheek appeared lifted, as if he were smiling too. I bit my lip to hide my smile. Then I glanced at him again. His face was turned away, but I thought his cheek appeared with as if he were smiling too. Sorry, I just read that part. After a few more minutes, the four of them just left the table together. They all were noticeably graceful, even the big, brawny one. It was unsettling to watch. The one named Edward didn't look at me again. I sat at the table with Jessica and her friends longer than I would have if I'd been sitting alone. I was anxious not to be late for my class on my first day. One of my new acquaintances, who considerably reminded me that her name was Angela, had biology 2 with me in the next hour. We watched class together in silence. She was shy too. When we entered the classroom, Angela went to sit at a blacktop table, lab table, exactly like the ones I was used to. She already had a neighbor. In fact, all the tables were already filled with but one. Next to the center aisle, I recognized Edward Cullen by his unusual hair, sitting next to that single open seat. As I walked down the aisle to introduce myself to the teacher and get my slip sign, I was watching him another word that I'm not used to pronouncing. But I'm going to try to pronounce it the best I can. Surreptitiously or surreptitiously? Yeah, let's just do that one. I was watching him surreptitiously. Just as I passed, he suddenly went rigid in his seat. He stared at me again, meeting my eyes with the strangest expression on his face. It was hostile, furious. I looked away quickly, shocked, going red again. I stumbled over a book in the walkway and had to catch myself on the edge of the table. The girl sitting there giggled. I noticed that his eyes were black. Coal black. Mr. Banner signed my slip and handed me a book with no nonsense about introductions. I could tell we were going to get along. Of course, he had no choice but to send me to the one open seat in the middle of the room. I kept my eyes down as I went to sit by him, bewildered by the antagonistic stare he'd given me. I didn't look up as I set my book on the table and took my seat. I saw his posture change from the corner of my eye. He was leaning away from me, sitting on the extreme edge of this chair, and averting his face like he smelled something bad. Inconspicuously, I sniffed my hair. It smelled like strawberries. It smelled my favorite shampoo. It seemed to say enough odor. I let my hair over my right shoulder. Oh my god. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more pages, I was wrong. Over my right shoulder. Hope I got enough space on my phone. Over my right shoulder, marking a double dark curtain between us, and tried to pay attention to the teacher. Unfortunately, the lecture was on cellular anatomy, something I'd already studied. I took notes carefully anyways, always looking down. I couldn't stop myself from peeking occasionally through the screen of my hair at the strange boy next to me. During the whole class, he never relaxed a stiff position on the edge of his chair, sitting as far from me as possible. I could see his hand on his left leg was clenched into a fist, tendons standing out under his pale skin. This too, he never relaxed. He had the long sleeves of his white shirt pushed up to his elbows, and his forearms were surprisingly hard and muscular beneath his light skin. He wasn't nearly as slight as he looked next to his burly brother. The class seemed to drag on longer than the others. Was it because the day was finally coming to a close? Because I was waiting for his tight fist to loosen? Never did, though. He continued to sit so still, it looked like he wasn't breathing. What was wrong with him? Was this just his normal behavior? I questioned my judgment of Jessica's bitterness at lunch today. Maybe she was not as resentful as I thought. It couldn't have anything to do with me. You didn't know me from Eve. I picked I peeked up at him one more time and regretted it. He was glaring down at me again, his black eyes full of revulsion. As I flinched away from him, shrinking against my chair, the phrase, "if looks could kill," suddenly ran through my mind. At that moment, the bell rang loudly, making me jump, and Edward Cullen was out of his seat. Fluidly he rose. He was much taller than I'd thought. His back to me, and he was out of the door before anyone else was out of their seat. Oh my God. I sat frozen in my seat, staring blankly after him. He was so mean. It wasn't fair. I began gathering up my things slowly, trying to block the anger that filled me. I'll be right back. At that moment, the bell rang loudly, making me jump, and Edward Cullen was out of his seat. Fluidly, he rose. He's much taller than I thought. I am so sorry. Let me skip back down to the bottom. I was frozen in my seat, staring blankly after him. He was so mean. It wasn't fair. I began gathering up my things slowly, trying to block the anger that filled me. For fear my eyes would tear up, for some reason my temper was hardwired to my tear ducts. I usually cried when I was angry, a humiliating tendency. "Ain't you Isabella Swan?" a male voice asked. I looked up to see a cute, baby-faced boy, his pale blonde hair carefully gelled in orderly spikes, smiling at me in a friendly way. He obviously didn't think I smelled bad. "Bella," I corrected him with a smile. "I'm Mike." "Hi, Mike. Do you need help? Do you need any help finding your next class?" I'm headed to the gym, actually. I think I can find it." "That's my next class, too." He seemed thrilled, though it wasn't that big of a coincidence in a school this small. We walked to class together. He was a chatterer. He supplied most of the conversation, which made it very easy for me. He lived in California until he was 10, so he knew how I felt about the sun. It turned out that he was in my English class too. He was the nicest person I'd met today. But as we were entering the gym, he asked, "So did you stab Edward Cullen with a pencil or what? I've never seen him act like that." I cringed. So I wasn't the only one who had noticed. And apparently that wasn't Edward Cullen's usual behavior. I decided to play dumb. "Was that the boy I sat next to in biology?" I asked artlessly. "Yes." "He looked like he was in pain or something." "I don't know," I responded. "I never spoke to him." "He is a weird guy." Mike lingered by me instead of heading to the dressing room. "If I were lucky enough to sit by you, I would have talked to you." I smiled at him before walking through the girls' locker room door. He was friendly and clearly admiring, but it wasn't enough to ease my irritation. The gym teacher, Coach Clapp, found me a uniform but didn't make me dress down for today's class. At home, only 2 years of PE were required. Here, PE was mandatory for all 4 years. Forks was literally my personal hell on earth. I watched 4 volleyball games running simultaneously, remembering how many injuries I had sustained and inflicted playing volleyball. I felt faintly nauseated. The final bell rang at last. I walked slowly down to the office to return my paperwork. The rain had drifted away, but the wind was strong and colder. I wrapped my arms around myself. When I walked into the warm office, I almost turned around and walked back out. Edward Cullen stood at the desk in front of me. I recognized again the toss of bronze hair. He didn't appear to notice the sound of my entrance. I stood pressed against the back wall, waiting for the receptionist to be free. He was arguing with her in a low, attractive voice. I quickly picked up the gist of the argument. He was trying to trade from 6-hour biology to another time. Any other time. I couldn't believe this was about me. It had to be something else. Something that happened before I entered the biology room. The look on his face must have been about another aggravation entirely. It was impossible that this stranger could take a sudden, intense dislike to me. The door opened again, and the cold wind suddenly gusted through the room, rustling the papers on the desk, swirling my hair around my face. The girl who came in merely stepped to the desk, placed a note in the wire basket, and walked out again. But Edward Cullen's back stiffened, and he turned slowly to glare at me. His face was absurdly handsome, with fear-piercing, hate-filled eyes. For an instant, I felt a thrill of genuine fear, raising the hair on my arms. The look only lasted a second, but chilled me more than the freezing wind. He turned back to the receptionist. Never mind then. Never mind then. How should I do Edward's voice? Never mind then, he said hastily in a voice that was like velvet. I can see that it's impossible. Thank you so much for your help. And he turned on his heel without another look at me and disappeared out the door. I went meekly to the desk, my face white for one instant. My face white for once instead of red, and handed her the sign slip. How did your first day go, dear? The receptionist asked maternally. Fine, I lied, my voice weak. She didn't look convinced. When I got to the truck, it was almost the last car in the lot. It seemed like a heaven, already the closest thing to home I had in this damp green hole. I sat inside for a while, just staring out the windshield blankly. But soon, I was cold enough to need the heater, so I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. I headed back to Charlie's house, fighting tears the whole way there. Whew! That was a chapter! And I will see you guys later or tomorrow for chapter 2 of Twilight. I hope you guys did like it. I'm sorry it took me so long to read it. I guess I'm a slower reader than I thought. But like I said in the beginning of this video, if you guys like this video, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll see all my when I go live, or when I post a video like this. So Daves-Raves is out, and I will see you guys in the next one.